In this video, I'm gonna start doing just a little bit of an experimentation on a hyper-casual game idea. So I have the idea of what I wanna accomplish in my head, and I need to go ahead and get that down, and I'm gonna start playing with that in Unity. So we'll see where this thing goes. Now the idea is that it's going to be a runner, and I wanna create a platform that's gonna continually move, and then the player is actually going to click and drag and rotate this thing around as parts of the ground are generated that they're gonna move on. And then there's gonna be obstacles that they're gonna have to avoid. And so I'm gonna start to experiment and play around with this. Hey, I'm Jerry from Bliz Studio, creator of the Apple featured game, Trixel Rocket. And if you like my video tutorial series, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and that little bell icon down there so you know when the next tutorial is available. And if you're ready to experiment with me, let's get started. All right, so here we are in Unity, and I want to go ahead and create a new project. So I'm going to create a new project, and this project's going to be 3D. So I'm going to call this Hyper Casual Runner, and I want to set this up in a folder. I've already created the folder on my desk or on my hard drive, and this is where I want to go ahead and stick that particular file or the game. Click select, it's gonna be 3D and everything looks like it's good to go. Okay, so this is gonna start up real quick, and then I'm gonna go ahead and install Playmaker. I'm gonna install iTween and the iTween actions, and then we'll be able to get started. Okay, so Unity started up, and I want to immediately go ahead and kind of, I need to install Playmaker. So first I'm gonna go to the asset store and go to Playmaker, and I've already purchased this, and so I can just import it directly into my project. So I need to import it. And then after import, I need to go ahead and install. And then I need to go ahead and import all of the project files or the Playmaker files. And there we go. So now we have Playmaker set up. Now the next thing we need to do is to go ahead and go back to the asset store, and I want to install iTween. This is a free asset on the asset store, so I'm going to go ahead and click on iTween and also import that into my project. And import. And now iTween is installed, and then there's one more thing that I need to go ahead and do, and that is to go to my Playmaker welcome screen, and then I'm going to go and add on click on the add-ons, and then I need to import also iTween support. So these are actions that are already set up for iTween. So let's go ahead and save all, and we're going to import these. And it's importing those actions into Playmaker. And then that's done. Cool. So now we can go back to our scene. The first thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and save my scene. I'm going to go ahead and just rename this. I'll just call this runner. And that is fine. Okay, so I want to go ahead and start working on getting my camera set up. And then I also want to bring in a cube just so that I can have a game object to kind of like focus on. So I'll go ahead and go to game object and create a 3D cube. So that's creating that at a position of 0, 0, 0. And then I need to take the camera and I need to be able to focus on that cube and kind of get it the angle that I want it to be. So I'm going to zoom in and kind of like move around. And with the camera selected, I'm going to go ahead and use the move tool and move this up. And let's go ahead and move it up just a little bit closer to the cube. And then I'm also going to rotate it so it's rotated down. So with the rotation tool, you can see that I have my rotation axis for the Z, Y, and X. So I want to rotate around the X axis so I can kind of see my cube. I want to see a little bit of that horizon in there, so I'm going to go ahead and just move this down. And yeah, that doesn't look too bad. I can always kind of play with the field of view. I can play with, you know, exactly what the depth is, all that kind of stuff. So, but this is kind of exactly about where I want it to be. I can maybe move it up just a touch. Yeah, and I think that looks pretty good. Cool. So the next thing that I want to play around with is that, so I want this cube to be generated and kind of like move towards me. And so the idea is that I want to have a container that's going to have all these cubes in it, and I'm going to continually generate these cubes or some type of landmass that the player has to run on that's going to have different enemy objects on it, and then you're rotating this whole group. So I need to actually create a container that cube is going to go in, because I want to rotate the container and not a bunch of cubes. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and create a new empty game object, and I'm going to call this my rotation manager. So I'm going to attach a Playmaker FSM to this, which is going to then control the cube or control the container that has the cubes in it. I also need to create that container which holds the cubes. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I'm going to create an empty game object, and we'll go ahead and call this cube. We'll call this land. We'll call this platform container, because I'm actually eventually going to swap out those cubes for something else. I don't know exactly what yet, and then I want to drop that cube in there. Okay, so we've got that in there, and I'm going to just add another empty game object just so I can kind of organize my game structure here. Just have a label that here's all my game objects organized. So my managers, I'm going to put all of the manager FSM, create the empty game objects that contain managers. I'm going to put them in that particular folder. So that empty game object, if I can get it in there. Cool, there we go. All right, so the next thing I want to do is let's see. I want to add an FSM. So I'm going to go ahead and create the FSM, the Playmaker FSM, that allows me to click and then drag and hopefully rotate the cube the container as we drag our cursor. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so I need to have my Playmaker editor up, and we'll drag that into view over here. Don't need the welcome screen. Okay, so I have my rotation manager selected, and I'm going to go ahead and create an FSM for that. And here we go. So the idea is that what I want to try to accomplish is when I click on my mouse button, then we want to drag and rotate left and right. We're going to rotate the cube around, okay? Or we're going to rotate the container around. So let's see. Let's just call this key. We'll call this mouse down. And this is just the name of the state. It doesn't really matter. Let's see. We'll call this listening. Yeah, how about that? Cool. All right, so we've got that in there, and I want to also add my Playmaker action browser. So get that added into my UI here real quick. There we go. And the thing that I want to listen for is when my mouse is down. Okay, so let's do this. We're gonna do mouse events. So there should be mouse, there we go, get mouse button down. So that's exactly the one we want. So within my listening state, I want to listen to get mouse button down. All right. So the button we want to choose is either left or right. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose left. Okay, so I've got get mouse button down and I need to create an event. So I'm going to create a new event. This is going to transition to the next state, which is then going to control the rotation of the cube. So let's call this mouse down. So create an event. And it's saying, hey, you don't have this event attached to your state yet, so I need to go ahead and add that. So here you can see that state has been added, or that transition has been added. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new state, and we'll call this mouse is down. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna drag that transition from mouse down to mouse is down, and then we need to say, hey, what's happening? All right, so if our mouse is down, then the idea is that I want to rotate the container that has all the cubes in it. So let's see. I want to get axis. So get axis. So I'm gonna go ahead and drag that state in. And then the axis name, this is where we kind of determine what it is we're moving. Okay, so Unity already has predetermined input managers. So if we go to edit and project settings, and then our input manager, you can see the axes that are here. And I've got a couple different ones for mouse X, mouse Y. So if I select mouse X, which I want to move when the cursor, or when somebody clicks and moves the cursor left and right, then that's when I want the object to move. So all I need to do is just copy this input name. So it's keeping track of all of that axis movement for me. I'll go ahead and close that. And this is what it's wanting for me to paste down in there. Okay, so I've got that done. I've got a multiplier. We'll come back to this because I know I'm gonna have to modify that to some extent, which is gonna control the speed at which this thing rotates. And then it's saying, hey, grab the axis, and then we need to store that in a variable. And then we're going to use that variable to then move or rotate or change the rotation of the transform. Okay, so we need to store this in a new variable, and we'll call this X move. Okay, so I've got that variable. So if we go over into variables, we can see that it's created X move and it's a type of float. And let's go back to our state. And then the other thing that I think I need to do is to, let's see, I just want to simply rotate. So let's just go rotate and rotate right here, right at the very top. So I want to go ahead and rotate. So I'm going to drag that action down. And then it's saying, hey, what is it that I want to rotate? So I'm going to choose a specific game object, and I want to choose my platform container because I don't want to rotate the cubes inside of it individually. I want to rotate all of them together. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to drag the platform container down into my game object as the game object I'm controlling the rotation of. And then the rotation is along the z-axis, which is like out and back, right? So if we zoom into our cube and I rotate the z, oops, let's make sure I select my container. If I rotate the z, that's exactly what I want to happen. So go back to my rotation manager here. I want to rotate along the z-axis, and I want to use that x move variable as the angle that I want to set. Okay, so you can see that it's already there as an option for me to select, so I go ahead and select that. And then let's go ahead and give this a try real quick just to see what happens. Okay, so you can see I'm listening for the mouse button down. I click my mouse button and then it switches automatically over to mouse down, which is good. And then I'm rotating, which is cool. I just lifted up my mouse and I see that I'm still rotating. So I know I need one more thing here in my mouse down, and that is if I lift my cursor, or if I lift my finger off of the button. So when mouse button up, so let's mouse button up. So I need to also listen for that. In the mouse is down state, I need to listen for if the mouse button is up. So the left button is the button we're listening to. I need to send it to an event, and I want to create a new event, and mouse up. And then it's saying, hey, you need to make a transition for this. Yes, we got that. And then if the mouse is up, then we're going to go back to listening. So we're just kind of listening for when somebody clicks the key down, and then in the transition over to it and mouse is down. So we're going to get the axis of the mouse, and then if we move left and right, we're storing that in a variable. We're going to use that variable to change the Z rotation of our object. And then if the mouse button's up, then we're going to go back and just listen. Okay, so let's give this a try. So my mouse button is up right now, and if I click down, you can see I transition over to the mouse is down, and I'm rotating. Although you can see that I'm rotating the exact opposite direction that I need to be. But let's see if I move my cursor up. Now I'm not rotating anymore. So perfect, that's exactly what I want. So let's go fix the multiplier. So here's the multiplier is, you can see that it was moving in the exact opposite direction. So if I moved left, it rotated right. And if I moved right, it rotated left. So what I need to do is put a negative number in this multiplier. So let's try negative 10 maybe. And then let's test that and see if that works. So there we go, we've got the right direction. And then I think that probably moves just a touch too fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this maybe down to 5. Again, this is just a number you can play with to see what happens. Again, this is just an experiment. Yeah, I think that works pretty good. So I'm using the cursor on this, but you could also use a touch event just as easily. So I'm using the mouse down, but you could use a touch event. So if I touch a mobile device and then move my cursor or my finger left and right, it can rotate the object just like it can the cursor. So that'll be something I will play with, yes. All right, so we've got that going. That's working exactly the way we want to. So cool. This worked way better than I thought it would, and was easier than I thought it would. So that's a good thing. So let's do this. I want to also get my box moving. So I'll, just to see what that looks like, let's go to our cube, and I'm gonna also put an FSM on this cube. Again, this is just an experiment. Let's say move cube. And okay, so what is it we want to do? I'm going to move the cube towards us. So let's do a set velocity. Let's go velocity, set velocity. Set velocity, yeah, set velocity. Okay, that's what we want. All right, then it's saying we need to add a rigid body component to our cube. That's fine. We'll go ahead and add that in. And so that adds a rigid body to our cube, which is perfectly fine. And then if I play now, I can tell you there's going to be something that's wrong. And Yep, my cube starts to fall off the screen, which is not something that we want. So I have gravity turned on, which is default for a rigid body. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so we now have a rigid body. And our cube hopefully won't go anywhere. So if I click play, it should just stay right there. Yep, cool. It doesn't fall. So that's exactly what I wanted to accomplish. And then let's do, actually, you know, I'm gonna do this differently. Let's go ahead and just delete that, set velocity. I wanna do this with an iTween. So I'm gonna do an iTween move by, yeah, okay. So what game object is it that we want to move? We're going to do the owner. So again, there's several different ways we can do this. I'm just playing around here. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and just type in the vector that I want to change, and I want to change the Z axis, and I want it to come towards us. So let's, with our cube selected, if I move the, oops, not the rotation, I want to do the position. So I want that to come this way, so that's a negative. So I'm gonna do a -1. And then I'm gonna have that animate towards us over 1 second. And then let's just see what happens here. Boom, okay, so that worked exactly the way I want it to. And then I think just in this experiment, I'm gonna have this just loop. So I'm going to choose a loop type of loop. So it's just like, looks like it's continually moving towards us. And let's give that a test real quick. So it should look like it's, yeah, perfect. Cool. So that works. So I'm going to just duplicate this cube real quick. So let's give a couple more instances of it just so I can kind of get the feel for how this looks and how it feels. So I'm going to change the Z position of these. So one, it's a little further back. So let's go 1.1. Cool. And then the next one, we'll move it a little forward. So -1.1. So it was just a little spacing in between those. So let's give that a play. So hopefully all three of those should move towards us. Oh yeah, there we go. Cool. I want to add one more, just because I think we need one more back. It's a little bit further back. So we'll have that be a negative, or a 2.2. Test that real quick. Yeah, cool. So that works pretty good. And then hopefully I should be able to put my key down and it's going to rotate all of those cubes together. Boom, there we go. That's awesome. Okay, so this was the experiment that I wanted to try to accomplish, and I might go ahead and extend this in another video just to kind of play around with it just a little bit more. But I think that's all I'm gonna do for right now. So that was a cool experiment. Sweet. This was a very fun little experiment. Again, it was just a minor little experiment. I had something in my head that I wanted to try to accomplish. I was able to do it pretty quick. I've got some ideas for what I want to try to accomplish to extend this just a little bit further. And I think what I want to do for the next one is to extend this just a little bit further and have the platforms kind of generated. And so I need to figure exactly what that's going to be, and that's what's going to happen on the next experiment. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and that little bell icon down there so you know when the next video is available. Until next time, keep on creating.